This is the AZ Cross at Horse Lovers Park Cyclocross race. It's a mixed category race, category 4-5. You'll see I have my little helper there escorting me to registration. I'm pretty new to cross. This is actually my second cross race ever. I'm a Cat 3 on the road, probably a slightly above average Cat 3, and what I think's been interesting so far in the 3 races I've done now for cross is how fast they start. So you'll notice the official blew the whistle, and it's a pretty hard effort right from the gun. The guy on the mountain bike up front, he takes this first corner pretty fast, carries a lot of speed into it, and he did that on the second corner as well. And spoiler alert for him, nobody ever caught him. He stayed away the entire race, and by the end of this, you can't even see him. He's a very good bike handler, pretty impressive. I'm not a great bike handler, so you'll notice there's already a big gap that's opened up, and we'd have to take a lot of these like kind of sharp corners into some loose sand, and that's where I had a little bit of difficulty. I still think I did, pretty well, all things considered, and certainly learned a lot. But I've got to get that bike handling down a little bit if I want to have some success in cyclocross. Parts of the course I did like is where it sort of straightens out a bit, whether it's dirt or a road. I was able to open up my legs a little bit, get some speed up, and either bridge up to guys or pass them all together. So you'll notice a little kind of small straightaway here. I liked this section. Turns left immediately into kind of a log that you have to dismount and step up. And I sort of hit it with my front tire here. The first time was a little awkward. By the end of the race and into the second race of the day, I was able to, have some good rhythm on that section and find a nice little path on the way down. So again, another straightaway, we're able to get the speed up. I think we're probably by the end of this straightaway up to 19 or 20 or so, which doesn't sound fast, but it certainly feels fast when you're riding on dirt. This Jet Set rider was pretty smooth. You'll notice a little bit later, I think he makes a bit of a tactical mistake, which I think cost him a good position, but otherwise a very strong, very smooth and good rider. So I really liked this section. It kind of winds around. It's a little bit loose, and it was a little bit hard for me, at least early, to keep my momentum up. But I thought it was, just fun generally. It kind of reminded me of, smooth single track mountain biking or something like that. Another thing I'm not that great at, but certainly a lot of fun. So another bit of a straightaway here. This one was a little bit bumpier and a little looser, so it was kind of hard to get your speed up. But you'll notice I'm kind of bridging back up, and that's what was interesting about the race is it's just so many of these like big efforts to either, come out of a corner, get back on somebody's wheel. There was no rest, I think, for the entire race. I don't have a power meter on my cross bike, but looking at my heart rate later, this one and the second race of the day, I was pinned above threshold the entire time. So 30 odd minutes here and 35 minutes in the race later. So definitely much harder, I think, than racing a crit, but in a lot of ways a lot more fun. So here's a road section. You'll notice the mountain bike guy's long gone. We never catch him. The Jet Set guy, I think, is way up front there. He's got a big gap on this guy in the donkey label kit right in front of me, who's got kind of a gap on me, but I'm able to sort of put the hammer down a little bit and bridge back up to him. Again, I really liked those smoother sections, stuff where I could take corners at speed. Probably plays a little bit more to my strengths than the rest of this stuff. So coming up here, we had like a couple pretty loose, pretty sharp corners, and you'll notice it's almost like we come to a dead stop on this one. It was really tough to navigate, and then immediately you have to hammer out, and then you see a barrier up there. You have to dismount, hop over a couple barriers actually. They're kind of uphill and then downhill. It's hard to tell. And then back on the bike, and then immediately, I think if I remember right, another left turn and then another right turn, which is pretty similar to what we just did. But again, incredibly sharp, really loose. By the end of the day, I was sort of dabbing my right foot down just to carry speed through it. Otherwise, you're almost to a dead stop, and you have to really put in a big effort coming out of it just to catch the wheel that was in front of you. So able to take this pretty fast. I don't know if you noticed there, but my rear tire skipped out a little bit, and I, for a split second, thought I was going down. but kept it up. And then we'll come up to another right turn here again, incredibly loose, come to almost a dead stop and have to hammer right out of it. So just the repeated efforts, I could see, I've heard people describe this as really good crit training, and I can definitely see why. I mean, big efforts coming out of every corner, much harder, like I said, than any crit I've done. So I wonder how I'm going to feel about racing crits in a couple months here in comparison to some of these cross races. So this is a pretty cool section, I thought. You can sort of see I'm trying to carry speed, but take the corner like a crit, and then it makes an immediate left right up here, pretty sharp into a dirt section. And I kind of screwed up here, right? This jet set guy is pretty smart, kind of cuts me off, shuts the door a little bit. But later in the day, and maybe even later in this race, I was able to take that one pretty quick. Another cool section, kind of loose throughout, but just fun to ride. And again, you'll see I have to, put in a big effort just to catch back on their wheels. They're just smoother bike riders than I am, I think, on in this kind of race and on this kind of course. So we do this kind of like 3-man thing for a while, if I remember right. The donkey label guy, the jet set guy, and myself. Again, the mountain bike guy is long gone. Again, we never saw him after the start line, essentially. So really, at this point, everyone is just racing for second, and I thought that was interesting as well. Is if somebody gets a gap, it's really hard to close compared to maybe a road race or a crit. In those, it's kind of a smooth effort, right? And if you want to bridge up to somebody, you just put a dig in, find that level of pain that you're comfortable with, and just keep it going. In a cross race, it's with so much stopping and starting again, and how well you have to handle your bike, it's just that much more difficult. So jet set guy here, I was trying to pass him and shuts the door very smartly again. I can tell he's a pretty skilled cyclist. So I lose a little bit of space there. I had to scrub my brakes when he did shut the door. And then we found ourselves into some loose stuff. So again, I have to bridge right back up. More, I don't know if it's wasted energy, but certainly more energy, which makes it more difficult later in the race to really put in any additional big efforts. What was funny, or I guess not funny, but interesting, was by the end of the race, that sort of big like monster truck tire obstacle, I don't know what else to call it, I started cramping a little bit by the end of the day, just running up and down it. Just the muscle recruitment feels a lot different in this kind of racing as well. So what we'll notice here is when we turn left, the jet set rider tries to bunny hop up this log, and you'll notice he kind of screws it up. I'm able to run around and run past him and then remount, and then that was the last I saw of him. So another thing that I thought was interesting about cross racing, it seems as though if you make a small tactical mistake, right, that maybe cost him 5 seconds, but realistically that cost him his position for the entire rest of the race. So now it's just me and this donkey label guy right now, trying to bridge up and failing for sure to the guy on the mountain bike. You'll notice he just took a drink there. I didn't bring any water on the race. I don't know if that's a thing or not in cyclocross, but as bad as I am at handling this bike on this kind of course, it probably would have been a mistake for me to bring water anyway. But it was hot out. I think it was like 87, 88 degrees, almost December in Phoenix. Pretty insane. So I'm just kind of riding with this guy now. He was pretty smooth through most of this, so I don't want to say it was easy to hold this wheel, but it wasn't so surgy, and I felt like I could maybe rest a little bit, even if it didn't feel like resting at the time. Like I said, my heart rate was pretty pinned above threshold for the entire race, but I wasn't really having to work super hard coming out of a lot of these corners. So he set a good pace, and then one I was able to, stay with him with. This corner I thought was really tricky. And by the end of the race, I was sort of dabbing my foot like some of the other corners, just to keep up speed. And back to the pavement. He puts in a little bit of an effort there. I'm able to stay with it. Most of the time I was on his wheel, I think he kept looking back, expecting there to be a bit of a gap. Yeah, see there he looks again. And I think he just recognizes that this is so much about position and having space on people. And I wasn't trying to let him have it. He made it really hard, though. I'll give him that. So fast right away, and this is again where we're coming into some of those sharp corners and then back up the other barrier, or the set of 2 barriers. You'll notice in about 5 seconds here as we're coming around, again, kind of a dead stop, and it's really hard to push out of it. I think it's right here. There's another rider. Maybe it's a little bit later, actually. But there's another rider that I don't even think I realized was hanging with us. And he does some pretty cool stuff. So left turn, and then another right. And I think this is where we see him. Yep, there he is. I think his number's 397 on the pink bike. So he had been hanging out. I didn't even realize it. Very, very smart. And just waiting. So we kind of turn left here, and this is, you can open it up a little bit, and you'll see him getting his drops, stand up, and put in a, pretty moderate effort, probably pretty big. He gets a little bit of space, and I think, it wasn't like an explosive move, so I'm thinking, okay, Donkey Label's gonna hop on his wheel, or at some point we're gonna bridge up to him. But again, spoiler, that just doesn't happen, right? He gets about 5 seconds on us, and that's all she wrote. So after a while, we're sort of just racing for third. So another, thing, right? He doesn't need that explosive attack to make it stick like you might in a road race or a crit to really get space. Just get 3, 4, 5 seconds, and it's really, really tough to stay motivated to chase after that when you're basically going full gas out of every single corner and worrying about staying upright. So here we go back into the dirt, and you'll notice 397 on that pink bike. He is, I can't even see him at this point. He's pretty far away from us. I'm guessing at this point he's like 10 seconds. So within not even a quarter of a lap, he's got 10 seconds on us, and that's going to be very difficult to make up. Maybe for a more experienced racer, they could make that up, but I'm certainly the way I can't, I should say, handle a cross bike, not really in a position to do that. So now Donkey Label and I are basically, even if we don't quite know it yet, we're racing for third. And he keeps looking back. I think he expects me to be gone. But again, he's been keeping it pretty smooth, so it's, hard. He's making it difficult, but also manageable at the same time. So much dirt on this course. Obviously, it's cross, right? But even these paved sections were just covered in this like fine layer of dirt where, you just had this feeling like if I'm running maybe a little bit too much pressure, I take this big kind of U-turn too fast or too much of an angle, I might wash out and just slide out or something. Fortunately, did not happen to me, but always kind of a thought in the back of my mind. By the end of the day, I ended up really liking this left turn into the grass. You could take it at a pretty good clip and then kind of hammer right out of it. So carry good speed, get even more speed on the straightaway. But then this, you can't really tell on the video, but that little corner right there was incredibly loose, and I almost washed out a couple times. And then you've seen it a couple times, but this corner, I don't know how easy it is to tell on video. This sand was pretty deep, so you had to really scrub a lot of speed, and then dismount, hop the obstacle, and then remount. Now he kind of flubs his remount there, so I used that as an opportunity just to get in front of him. And right about here, I remember just trying to put a little bit of effort in, get a little bit of speed, so I see if I can get some space on the guy. So I take the left turn. This goes into, again, a straightaway, and I put in a little bit of an effort, I'm probably looking back a couple times just to see where he's at, and I think I realized I maybe had like 2 or 3 seconds. So I tried to do this really smoothly, hop on my bike, and then make a left, and then in about a second here I start putting in pretty large effort for the stage of the race. I'm pretty tired, but I look back and he's maybe 5 seconds behind, and I think, okay, I've got some space on him, and I think I can stay away. And I did. So I'm not gonna make you watch 10 more minutes really of me just riding all by myself, so I'll speed up the video here. But everywhere I could, I tried to put in a big effort, get a little more space on the guy, and by the end of it, I think I found myself maybe 10-15 seconds up, and then I think maybe I finished 18 or 20 seconds up on the guy in the donkey label kit. But I really got to use this time in between trying to hammer on the straightaways, as trying to learn the course a little bit, because I knew I had to race later in the day, take different lines, see how that worked out, focus on my dismounts and remounts, and really just enjoy the course. By the end of the race, I felt like I was dying. Incredibly hard, this sport, much harder than any crit or road race I've done. At least, this 30-minute section, right? Much harder than any 30 minutes in a crit or a road race. And then by the end of it, you end up, getting a little bit sloppy because you're super tired. But, beyond that, still had an incredible time. My kid was out there cheering for me. Every time I would ride by, he yelled, "Go faster," because he saw there were 2 guys, ahead of me, and I'm racing for 3rd. And I wanted to say, I can't. This is really, really difficult, but a lot of fun. So I think this is about the end, yeah. So here I am just kind of rolling in for 3rd place, really tired. Didn't know how I was going to do the second race of the day, but about an hour later I thought that was so much fun. I can't wait to get out there again, and just had a good day on the bike. So Cat 4-5, 3rd place. Thanks for watching.